Andrea, welcome to the Dream Hustle podcast. I'm so excited to have a chat with you today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Well, it's so important because, this is a topic that when small businesses get started, we get so excited about our colors and our website and our branding and what we're going to do as our services. And I think really the most important thing we need to be thinking about when we get started is protecting ourselves. And it seems to be the last thing we think about. I'm sure you probably find that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Legal stuff it definitely is not the sexy stuff,
Yeah.
but it's the necessary stuff.
For sure. And it's the stuff that we kind of think after the fact. It's like, oh, shoot, yeah, I guess I have to figure that out. And we're going to talk about how you help serve small business entrepreneurs, because you have an amazing program. So you guys just stay listen to the whole thing, because it's definitely going to be worth it. But before we jump into the legal questions and all the good stuff, I'd love to hear your story about how how you created this amazing service that helps small business entrepreneurs as a lawyer, because I know it's been a journey for you.
Yeah, it has been quite the journey. And it actually I feel like I would do a disservice if I didn't explain really the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, which started in law school, which is kind of crazy. And people are like, what? You started a business in law school? It's like, yeah, I wasn't busy enough. Yeah, right. So in college, I was not the traditional college student in that I was broke because I was in the army. I made really good money for a college student. And my husband and I, who was my boyfriend at the time, we didn't have to live like poor college students.
Yeah.
And when I got to law school, I had no money. I was finally the poor law student, and I just had to figure it out. I was just like, okay, how am I going to make money? Because in law school, you can't work your first year. There's exceptions, but for the most part, you can't work because they want you to make sure you're spending that time studying and truly understanding the material. So I started selling on Poshmark. I don't know if
Okay. Yep.
yeah, Poshmark. And that just, because the money that I had in college, I spent it on clothes. And I started selling all those clothes, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just, start selling what I have in my closet. And then that transformed into selling. My husband loved going to thrift stores, so I remember starting to think, oh, this is cute. I wonder if I could sell it for a profit. And then that turned it into its whole thing. And then I started selling new clothing, buying wholesale and reselling it. So then I started my own website, and it actually turned into a brick and mortar store. So went through the whole transformation there. Then I got burned out, but in law school, so I sold that business. But in law school, I scored, the big firm job, 6 figures out of the gate, and I thought I was set for life. I literally was just like, oh, this is it. We're set here. Like, this is amazing. And I started that job, and it was absolutely miserable.
Oh.
And yeah, I don't even know, because we have our summer internship, and of course that was great because they just wine and dine you. And then I remember the first week officially there, I remember sitting in my office and just watching these old men walking around in their 3-piece suits, and it just hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, they've been here since they're my age.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here for the next 40 years. Like, I do not want to sit my butt in this seat for the next 40 years. So it was almost from day one, I was miserable. And I feel like I kind of cursed myself because I had that entrepreneurial experience before working for somebody. But it all worked out in the end because from having that clothing store, I had that connection to other boutique owners, other retailers. And they constantly came to me when I was at the firm asking for help with trademarks and copyrights. And I knew nothing about copyrights and trademarks. And at the time they couldn't afford the fees. So most of the time it's just like, yeah, we can help you, but these are the fees. It was a big firm. They couldn't afford it. And then finally I had a client who's just like, you know what? I don't care what the fees are. I need help. I need to get this done. I have, people copying me. It's like, okay, great. We'll bring you onto the firm. I thought I was a rock star. I'm this first year attorney bringing in clients, and I'm like, heck yeah, like this is it. They're going to love me.
Yeah.
And I literally had a partner tell me to my face, like, we do not want this person as a client. Like, they're not a quality client. And in my eyes, this business owner, like, as a boutique owner, like, this business owner was just like, it. Like they were somebody I looked up to.
Yeah.
And I mean, multiple six figures. Now they're $1 million company. And I just remember having that moment. And that was, you know, how people say like, hey, you know, you have this defining moment. Like that was it for me, because I was just told like small business owners aren't quality clients. But I had experienced having all of these small business owners come to me at the firm. I couldn't help them. So when I had that moment where the firm told me they didn't even want those clients, I just knew, okay, well, I think I can go and be that person to serve those small businesses. And I remember telling my husband, I was like, oh, I think, you know, like that would be so cool if I could just go and serve all these small businesses and be that go-to attorney for them. And I just remember like sitting in my office, like dreaming about that, just like, oh, I would love to just serve nothing but these small businesses. And then now, like a couple of years later, like here I am doing it.
You're doing exactly that. Well, and it's funny because I always think that things happen for us. So it's like you were put in that position to open that store and sell those things and do that stuff because it was preparing you for this, right? Like there was like, this was something that you know, were meant to do. And it was just, you had to go through this process in order to figure it out. And I think it's a really cool thing to point out here is that you recognized a need. And that's why I think a lot of like, you know, I've talked to a lot of different people and, you know, it's like they think to themselves, well, how can I start a business? What do I know? And it's like, you do know stuff, right? Like you recognize that and you had the ability to be able to teach them and you just realized it and turned it into something, which is how easy it can be to like get started as an online entrepreneur.
Exactly. And the thing is, what you're doing right now may not be your calling, but it may lead to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's exactly what happened to me, because I mean, when we got really, my husband and I, we got burned out with the store, and we wanted to sell it. And then we were trying to move. So we were in Cincinnati at the time. We were trying to move to Houston where my family is. And literally within a week, like everything fell into place. And we're like, okay, this is what we're meant to be doing right now.
Yeah.
And we just when I say we got burned out, we were just stuck. And we we're like, we're stuck here. Like we have to get out. We have to do something. And knowing that everything just fell into place so easily, we just knew, hey, like now we know this is what we're supposed to be doing.
You're meant to do. Well, and that's what the thing is, like in life, you know, it throws you different things to teach you things. And then you have to just be open to the fact that, and have faith that this is happening for us. Like this is, you know, my husband and I, we went through a really shitty financial situation, you know, a few years back. And I look back and I'm actually grateful for that time because it taught us a lot of things. And, you know, we had to sell our house and move and do all these things, but it brought us to where we are today. And it started a whole new life for us in a direction that we would never have probably even imagined if we didn't go through that, you know? And so I think that that's, you know, going back to that, things happen for us. I totally believe in that. And to be open to allowing things to unfold in that way. And like when you get those ideas and those thoughts to do things, to trust that that's you're getting that idea for a reason, because you're meant to carry something out, which is exactly what you did. And I love it. And so for those of you guys who are listening right now, Andrea, and I'm just going to give you a snapshot of what she does now. She helps entrepreneurs get their contracts and their legal stuff organized, but in a way that's not going to cost you a fortune. It's like you've got the monthly membership and you've got a yearly membership. And we're going to get more into that at the end, but I just want you to understand that she's not your typical lawyer. It's not. I know recently, before I connected with you, I had my lawyer go through some of my contracts and stuff, and it cost me $2,000 just to get an overview. And then here's the thing though, Andrea, I got a thing back of all of this stuff that I didn't even understand. I was like reading all of their feedback going like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. It made no sense to me. And so I literally did nothing with it. It's still sitting there and I haven't touched it because I don't know, I don't understand it. So what you're providing is like pivotal. So all of you entrepreneurs listening to this right now, stay with this call because you are absolutely going to love what Andrea has to offer. So can we talk about some of the questions that I know as an entrepreneur in a small business? Like these are questions that I've had, and these are questions that I know my audience will have, and just go through some of the, you know, why you need it and just your feedback on these areas. The first one is website. So if we talk about websites first, you know, there's that terms and the policies that are with every website. And actually just yesterday, my husband noticed that he didn't have terms or policy on his site. So I was like, you better get it. Right. So can you explain to us, okay, what they are, first of all, and why they're like, why are they important? Why do we need these?
Yes. So the privacy policy, that's actually required. Well, I know for sure it's required by US law. I'm pretty sure it's required by Canadian laws and other foreign laws. But because there's been so many data breaches lately, I mean, there's no reason you don't want to put it on there, because countries and states are enacting more stricter
Mm-hmm.
privacy laws because of all the data breaches.
Can you just explain a data breach, just so for those who don't know what that means?
Yeah, so I mean, it can happen in so many ways, but a lot of times it's happening through email, where somehow somebody hacks into an email and they get all kinds of unfortunately personal information and financial information. They can wipe out your bank accounts. They can, get even if you're a business owner, if they get all of your business contacts, think about how awful that is. Like, especially if they're clients of yours, they can easily get those business contacts and email them and say, hey, this is my new email, make sure you send payments to this bank account instead, or something like that. And I've actually seen that happen quite frequently lately, which is awful, because it's some clients don't want to believe that it's on their end.
Yeah, that's their.
And sometimes it's hard to detect. It's hard to figure out where exactly is this breach coming from.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to figure out where this breach is even coming from, because it's spoofed essentially. And a lot of times on Facebook, if you get hacked on Facebook or Instagram, that's exactly what happened. Like, that's exactly what it is. It's a data breach.
They're getting into your information and then using your information to do things that they shouldn't be, but that's how they're doing
Exactly.
it. So how does the privacy policy protect you in that?
So the privacy policy actually doesn't necessarily protect you with those breaches, but it helps the users to understand what data are you collecting, what are you doing with that data, who can access, like, whose information are you saving. So there's always something about ages of people that can visit the website. And believe it or not, you have a contract between the visitor of your website, and that's in the terms and conditions of the website. Now, that is not required by law.
Okay.
But again, you definitely want to have it there to lay out those rules with the visitor of your website. Because let's say, for whatever reason, they view something they don't like to see, and they want to come back and say, you made me look at this and this hurt my eyes. I don't know, I'm just coming up with something crazy.
Well, create emotional damage.
Yeah, exactly. We're crazy litigious over here, but
sure, it's happened somewhere.
yeah, exactly. And if you have in your terms, like, we're not responsible for what you, like, if this damages you by viewing it, if that's in your terms, well, guess what? They can't sue you for it. Because whether they read them or not, they're bound by them.
Yeah. So it's to protect what you're putting out there from people who are coming and landing on your site. So basically you can say, if anything happens to you from being on my site, I'm not responsible.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so then here's my next question around that, because so for instance, I use Kajabi, and Kajabi, when you sign up for a Kajabi account, they give you in the terms and the policies, there's like a stock version where you can just type over your name. Is it okay for people to use those, or should they have their own policies and terms created, or like getting it from, like, for instance, like the contract vault or something like that? Like, what's the difference between what comes with Kajabi and then having it done properly?
So with Kajabi, it's not awful. I use Kajabi. They're great, but they're not enough. They're very basic. And if you want to make sure that everything you have is fully protected, all of the terms are properly in there, then you need to have more thorough terms and a more thorough privacy policy.
Okay, so they're there, and if you had it, it's better than nothing, but
right,
have something a little bit more specific for your business, let's say.
Exactly.
Okay. And so same with the policies and the terms. Okay, cool. And so as advice for small business owners, you need to have the policies. Terms you don't necessarily have to have, but it's going to protect you. So basically have both.
Yes.
And have them done right. Okay. I love that. And then what does the copyright, when you see like copyright 2020 and it's like Shane Rock, because I have that on my site too. but to be honest, I don't really understand what that is saying or doing for my business.
Yeah, so the copyright symbol and the copyright signal, that so let me take it back a step. For copyrights, that protects your content. So
Okay.
the content on your website is protected with a copyright. And the thing about copyrights, you don't actually need a registration to have protection. The
Okay.
registration is great for some things, but to have actual rights, as long as it is original content, you automatically own the copyright to that content. So the symbol on the website at the bottom, that indicates that your website is protected with a copyright. And the copyright symbols should be updated and notate the year that it was last updated.
Okay. That makes
So hopefully every year you change the notice
Mhm.
to the current year.
Okay. So that's something you should be doing yearly, is having that copyright update. Because if it says 2018 and now it's 2020 and they take something from your site, there's no,
Well, you would still have protection, but you still have the protection, but updating the copyright symbol, number one, it makes them take you more seriously.
Yeah.
And number two, it's a proper notice. So if you had to sue for copyright infringement, by having the proper notice, you have a better chance at getting damages.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, cool. And so that brings me to, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and I'm going to talk about social media, because speaking of taking things and reusing them on sites, I've had this happen a few times where there's fake accounts that are created on social media. They're Bitcoin accounts. I don't even know. But
Yeah.
they saw my images and they create an account with my name. Like, I've had people message me going, "Did you know that this is here?" And I was like, "No." Like, but they've literally taken all my photos and put them on this fake account. So am I, like, I know I believe like anything you put on social media is owned by the social media company. I don't know, maybe you can clarify that. Like, so if I put something on Instagram, Instagram owns that. Is that correct? Or can you talk about that and how we can protect ourselves a little bit in that area?
Right. So what you post on social media, you don't really own, well, let me take back. You own your content,
Mhm.
but they own your following. They own the overall platform, obviously. But so let's say obviously you take a photo, you post it on Instagram. Instagram now has a license to use that photo for whatever they want.
Ah,
But nobody else necessarily has a license. So if somebody takes that photo and let's say they screenshot the photo, post it on their own Instagram, that is copyright infringement. However, what's not copyright infringement is if they use the Regram app.
okay.
That's not infringement because Instagram says it's not.
Okay. So if you repost somebody's thing using Regram, or like I have I don't know what mine is, but you're okay to do that. And is it because you're crediting, or it's because Instagram has just stated that that's okay?
Yeah, only because Instagram says it is. So, and that's another misconception, is about giving credit. It doesn't matter if you give credit or not. It's still infringement.
Interesting. So these people who are creating these Bitcoin accounts with my images, technically I could sue them?
Yes, if you can figure out who they are.
Who they are, right?
But
Exactly.
I get it all the time with clients. We just report the photos for copyright infringement, and eventually they have enough copyright infringements against them that Instagram will remove their account.
Yeah. And that's what I do when I see it, as I report them to Instagram and I say, I don't even really think you can say too much, but I just say this is spam. And then I think they obviously do their research and see that, what it is. And then they send me a message saying we've removed the account, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then on the images front, one of the apps that I know, and I've used this before as well, is Unsplash. They provide like they say that they're, copyright free images or whatever, and that you can use those in your social media. So is there anything we should be concerned about if we are using images from Unsplash, whether it be on our social media or our websites or our marketing materials?
Honestly, have not read the license agreement for Unsplash, but you do want to make sure you read that agreement, because sometimes, and I've discussed all about the Canva licenses, so that's all on my social media. But Unsplash and a lot of the free ones, they allow you to use it, but I think what happens a lot of times is it's free for certain uses. So if you use it like for maybe on your website, that's fine to use. Maybe social media, but I typically it's not free if you want to use it for like an advertising campaign.
Mm.
And I don't know for sure because I haven't read it, but a lot of times it's not okay for the advertising campaign because many more eyes are going to be on it.
Yes.
So you can't use it in a Facebook ad, on an Instagram ad, because this is how it is with Canva. One type of license is you can use the free photo for up to two to have 2,000 people see it.
Okay.
But typically advertising campaigns have many, many more eyes than 2,000 people. So you'll have to read the license agreement. And that's a good, I need to look into that because that would be a good video for me to do, is explain all those free images. Yeah,
because I know there are a lot of people who, especially as in my audience, who are new entrepreneurs that maybe they don't at this point can't afford the photographer and have the personal brand shots done. And, so they are, finding resources like Unsplash and using I have Canva and I use some of their images sometimes, and they don't read the terms or they don't read the policies and stuff like that because they're not thinking to. So bottom line, read those things because there may be something in there that they could come back at you with. So protect yourself by understanding it. But yeah, that would be a great episode for sure.
And the thing about photographers, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you hire a photographer, you don't own those photos. You're only paying that photographer for a license to use those photos. So because typically what happens, or what I see happen is, a business will come to me and they're like, hey, I pay this photographer to take these photos of me, but they're posting them on their own Instagram. And I'm like, well, you probably don't own those photos to begin with. You only pay them for a license so they can do whatever they want with those photos. So make sure you keep that in mind when you are hiring a photographer. And yeah, you can get those rights, but normally if you want to have them assign you all of the rights to where they don't have the right to use those photos, the price is going to be 10, 20 times more.
Yeah, to get that. It's funny because I haven't actually signed a contract with my photographer that I've used. Like, it's just like hey, here's this and I'll take some photos of you kind of thing. So I don't mind my photographers using my photos because it's just more, she always tags me and it's it's a good thing, and I try and tag her as much as possible too, just to do that nice exchange. But that's interesting though, that you don't own the photos, because you would think that you did because you paid for them and they're you. Right. So be mindful of that. And then, so just to address this, because I think most people would know this, but you can't go let's say onto Pinterest and look for, morning coffee mug, and then find an image on Pinterest that you like, and then take that image and use it yourself. That is a
big no.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that because I feel like people should know that, but I do think that there are people who don't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's so hard about being an entrepreneur. I like to say it's a blessing and a curse. A blessing because we're doing our own thing. We don't have a boss, but at the same time, it's a curse because now you have essentially you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, because as an individual, you're held to this standard here. And then the moment you make a sale and you become a business owner, you're held to a much, much higher standard, and you have so much more liability on you. You're responsible for knowing all the laws. You're responsible for knowing these rules and regulations, and whether you can't, ignorance is never a defense, but even as a business owner, you can't rely on just saying, oh, well, I didn't know, I'll do better next time. You're a business owner now. This is serious stuff. And that's where I try to fill the role, is because so many business owners, the business owners I work with, get in trouble with the law, they get sued, or they get a cease and desist letter. It's not because they meant to do something wrong. They just didn't know what the law was. And unfortunately, most of the time when you go to an attorney and you're like, okay, teach me about this. Like, okay, here's my rate at $300, $350 an hour. I'll teach you anything you want to know.
Right.
And it's just man, the Fortune 500 companies, they were born and bred for those roles. they have the education. They, they have their general counsel that has the legal education. Their CEO knows all of the, the executive stuff. Their CFO knows all the financial stuff. They have the experts in those positions, but as a solopreneur or small business, that all of that falls on us. So that's why I think it's a curse at the same
Yeah,
time.
because we don't have a lawyer on our team that we can just go to anytime we want. Well, we could, I guess, but like you say, it would cost us thousands. I have some more questions for you around some other things, but at this moment, let's quickly talk about the contract vault, because I really want really want everybody who's listening to understand the service that you offer, because we've talked about a lot of things that you probably have questions on, and that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get in touch with my lawyer today and figure all this stuff out. Let's talk about the contract vault. So what makes the contract vault amazing for small business entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so the Contract Vault is a legal resource that provides all access to 80 plus contract templates. And these aren't just, oh, here's an independent contractor agreement. They're specific to different business industries. And I've created this because I have the clients who have come to me after downloading the general Google template, downloading from LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, and just getting screwed because they didn't have any legal guidance. They don't know exactly how to use that contract, what exactly goes into it. So I've created this resource to make sure that different online business industries have their specific contracts and the templates in place to protect them and their business. Because also what I have found over the past couple of years working with business owners, especially if you're a new business, you don't necessarily need custom contracts because you don't know what you need and what you don't need. You don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work in your business. So when somebody comes to me as a new business and they say, "Hey, I want a custom contract for this," and I take them, through the whole process, create, ask all the questions, create everything, ultimately it boils down to them using my template anyway. So I'm just giving everybody my templates, but on top of the contracts, we're coupling it with the legal education because I don't want to just give people these templates and let them run free. I want people to be empowered to learn the legal stuff. So number one, stay out of legal trouble. And number two, learn how to use the legal stuff to your advantage. So, as individuals, we all hear about, oh, these super rich business owners using these tax advantages or getting out of trouble with these laws or this, like, it's, I mean, to a point, it's a secret to individuals. But as a business owner, if you're empowered with the right knowledge, you can do the same exact thing.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard you say, like on your webinar that you recently did about, say people have been having the right contracts in place, have actually saved people hundreds of thousands of dollars because they were empowered with the right information and documents, so that they weren't like, when COVID hit and things got canceled and stuff like that, they weren't out of pocket all this money and stuff because they were properly protected, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So with the Contract Vault, you get 80 plus contract templates. We're constantly adding to it. You also get the Facebook group where we do a live every single month educating. So the first portion is educating about the law, and then we do live Q&A. So just run rampant with the questions, and I just go boom, 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 and rattle them all off. So it's not exact. So this isn't an attorney-client relationship. I do have separate programs for that, but this is truly an amazing offer for the new and super small business owners that can't even afford the attorney-client relationship. Because I try to be as affordable as possible, but in my experience, there's still people that can't afford that. And I don't want people to just be guessing or just completely put it off.
Or be completely vulnerable and putting themselves out there without any protection, because that could be like even way more costly than,
Exactly. And in my head, it's just like, I don't want the next Google or Apple to be stopped in their tracks just because they didn't know the legal stuff, just because they couldn't afford to get the right contracts in place, or they didn't know, they weren't informed as to, the legal education side. So that's what the vault does. We cover all of that. And then if you pay yearly, there's some bonuses there. You can make contract requests. So if you look through the 80 contracts and you don't see what you need, you can make a request to get a contract. So essentially you can get any contract that you want with the vault.
I think that's amazing. And that's why I wanted to, one, feature you here, because I think that your services are so needed in the niche that I'm in. And, as a business consultant and a business coach, I can say, yes, you need these things, but I'm not qualified to say what those things should be and what should be on them and all that kind of stuff. I just direct them to say, hey, you need to talk to your lawyer, but yes, I would say you should go get this done. And now I feel, because I know what it's like. Like I said at the beginning of our conversation, I contacted my lawyer and said, can you look at my contract? And I got back a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo that I didn't understand and paid $2,000 for it. And I've done nothing with it. And so I feel way more confident saying, go see Andrea, go see the legalpreneur, go to the contract vault. That's where you're going to get what you need in order to get yourself started. Now, to qualify that, you do say you should have a lawyer
Right.
that can review. Maybe you pay them for an hour's time to just go through and make sure that what you've got is up to snuff for your country or your specific niche or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, this is, I'm not, I definitely have to be careful there. This is not all the legal protection that you need. This is just a great starting point to get you started going.
Yeah. So that you're not left with nothing. Like you're not out there with nothing. At least you have something to kind of get you moving, which I think is great. And so that's why I wanted to interject that there so that you guys, you're not thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to start this business now because I have all these legal fees I'm going to have to pay for before I can do it. No, Andrea's got you covered in getting you started where it's not going to, cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month to get this stuff organized. Okay. So question then, going back to contracts, because I love that the contract vault, when I was in there, you could see like, are you in health and wellness? Here's the contracts for that. You're in the beauty business. Here's the contracts for that. So when you think about coaches and course creators, what are some things that they need to make sure that their contracts include? Like, what do we need to know about those types of contracts? And, what should we be, protecting ourselves with? Like, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so what I believe is the most important provision is the intellectual property provision, the intellectual property clause in the contract. And most people don't understand this. And it goes back to the whole photographer thing. A photographer their work is creating intellectual property, copyrights. So if you have a relationship that you've entered into, you've signed a contract with somebody, if the end result is intellectual property, well, you need to make sure you understand who owns that final product. Because if it's an independent contractor relationship, so if they're not your employee, then they're an independent contractor. And so the example I like to use is an ebook. So you write all this content for this ebook, and then you hire a designer to design it. Make it all pretty, put some beautiful colors in there, throw some designs in there, make it the final product. Well, that ebook is a copyright. It's intellectual property. And if the contract between you and that designer didn't state that you own the copyright, then that independent contractor, that designer, they automatically own the work. And a lot of times they're not doing it on purpose. They're not trying to say, yeah, you're paying me and you don't own this.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time they don't know. They don't understand the law.
They own it. Yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes it's honestly not that big of a deal because they don't understand that they own it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to make sure that you own it, because let's say you get the final ebook, you start, it's your freebie, you start handing it out to everybody, getting all these emails, and then somebody copies it. Somebody starts sharing it as their own. Well, what can you do? You can't do anything. You don't own it. That designer is the only person that can do something. And if you can't get a hold of them, if they don't want to take the time to do anything about it, well, guess what? They can share that ebook without any recourse because you don't own it and you can't do anything about it.
And they could go and turn it into a physical book and sell it if they want to.
Exactly.
Wow. See, that's so important to know. So again, going back to empowering yourself with teaching yourself, like you have to learn these things. And that's why, again, going back to the contract vault, having that Facebook group and be able to ask those questions and do those teachings, like this is a big thing for us as business owners. We have to educate ourselves in this stuff so we know these things. So that's insane. I didn't realize that. What about then? So I guess too, then for I'm just going to switch gears a little bit, but what about podcasts? Like, so if I create a podcast, is there anything legally that I need to know? Like, I know, for instance, I have a podcast contract that when a guest comes on, you saw my contract. I don't know. You probably have some things to say about it.
No,
but
you're fine.
like I just, this is a good point. And I did do this. And so I'm looking forward to getting a proper one, but I just got that information from somebody else who had a podcast contract, right? Just to cover myself. But like, who owns this interview? Do I own this interview? Do you, like, how does that work? When you have a podcast, what do you need to know about protecting yourself?
Yeah, so great question. We'll use this exact recording. So you own this recording.
Hmm.
You own this exact recording. However, I own my material. So you can't go out and start teaching, the exact. And the idea of me teaching this legal stuff, that's not protected. But if somebody wants to go out and basically remember what I said word for word, and then they go out and teach it, that is copyright infringement.
Okay.
And then if, let's say I wanted to, I downloaded this podcast episode and I shared it out to, my audience. If I don't have your permission, technically,
Okay.
that's copyright infringement. And let me clarify that. If I'm sharing the podcast episode, that's fine. But if I download the actual content and I upload it as my own on my own podcast, that is not allowed. That is copyright infringement. And you know what? Maybe it is allowed. Maybe you're like, yeah, do that. Go ahead. If you have permission, that's a license, and that's all you need is the permission to do it. If you don't have the permission, then it's copyright infringement.
And can permission be an email that says, hey, can I put this on my podcast? And I email back and say, yeah, sure, go ahead. Is that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to take it a step further, a license is limited. So if you say, hey, I want to download this and put it on my podcast, can I do that? And you say, yes. Well, I can't download it and then go upload it to Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I could do that anyway.
Or iTunes.
But,
yeah.
Right. I couldn't go and upload it somewhere else. Or I couldn't go and sell it. Like, hey, here's this masterclass that I did. I would have to get your specific permission to do that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless, originally when I asked for permission, I said, hey, can I download this content and use it for, whatever I want in my business?
Yeah.
And you say yes, then yeah, that's fine.
And then they can go and do that because you have that written thing. Interesting.
There's so many. And there's so many little nuances. Like, we could change like one little thing here and there, and it would be a completely different answer. So sometimes it's so hard. And a lot of time, one thing that's frustrating for me is, I try to put out tons of free content out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever. I try to be omnipresent. And the thing is, I honestly can't answer every single question, because somebody may say, hey, I did this, da, 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 and what's the answer to this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I would need more information.
Yeah.
And it's so tricky because people get mad. They're like, what do you mean? Like, you can't answer this. Of course you're going to charge me to do this. I'm like, well, yeah, like that's my trade. Like, I'm putting out all of this in free information. You can, decipher it for yourself and interpret it as, and make your decision there. But if you want my specific advice, like, that's what I'm getting paid for. That's how I make my money.
Yeah. So then you just have to say, connect with me and we'll talk about how we can, make that happen. Interesting. So then, for instance, like all these books behind me, I've worked with different mentors. I've worked with different coaches. I've learned things on how to do my own business. So when I learn something and I want to teach that something to my students, am I allowed to do that? Or do it, like, I wouldn't obviously use it word for word. I take my experience in learning that something and put it into my own words and my own thoughts, and then teach it to my students. So is that considered copyright, or is that considered, I just learned something and now I want to teach it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that?
Yeah. So it's probably fine. Ideas cannot be protected. So the idea that you have a podcast on business and entrepreneurship, anybody can have a podcast about that. Now, if you go and copy somebody's episodes word for word, that's copyright infringement. Yeah. Even if you take a course from somebody and essentially create the same exact course, not word for word, but maybe you change a few words here and there, that's probably copyright infringement. So, but let's say, you know, you take a course on uh, how to start your own online business in 6 weeks. If somebody else has a course about how to start your online business in 6 weeks, that's not infringement. The
No.
same ideas and the same methods, those aren't infringement, but it's hard to decipher, okay, what's the line?
Yeah.
And nobody knows, because for copyrights, infringement is when the content is substantially similar.
So probably like a certain percentage or.
No, the percentage thing like that definitely doesn't apply. But the thing is, nobody really knows.
Yeah.
And what's hard is, and the thing is, because nobody knows, nobody wants to sue, because nobody wants to be told they're wrong. They don't want to spend the money to be told they're wrong. And then perhaps that opens the floodgates for people. So we have a lot of trouble as well, you know, advising clients, especially that do own and create a lot of copyrighted works. But yes, it's really tough sometimes.
Well, and what I do for myself and what I think, you know, I learn things, but then when I put them in my own thoughts, like I take an experience from what I learned and say, this is what I learned. This is how I applied it. This is what I learned from it. And this is how I would say to you to do it, you know, and it's not an exact. And then when I create my documents for my courses and programs, I just put on the bottom a sentence that says copyright Shayna Recker. My business name is Shayna Recker, or it's actually Recker Media, because I'm incorporated now. So it's Recker Media. So it's copyright Recker Media. And basically like, you can't copy this kind of thing. And I own this, right? So just letting, you know, people know that you have ownership of this document. You can't download it, put your logo on it, and then sell it in your course kind of thing.
Yeah, no, perfect.
Okay, so one last question, because this is a big one, and then we'll wrap up. We'll summarize the contract about one more time, and then we'll wrap up. So the one thing that for coaches, service-based coaches, one of the things that I do recommend for a lot of them is that to name their businesses their own name, because people are doing business with you. They want to get to know who you are. And like, if you call yourself like, dream business and not your name, then now you've got to trademark that and make sure nobody else. So if I use my own name for my business, do I have to trademark it? Is there anything I need to do legally to stop somebody else from using my name for their business?
I would definitely trademark it. Absolutely.
So even your own name?
Yes. I always tell clients, look, if you're doing business even with your own legal name, definitely protect it, because think about Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is very frequent in the fashion industry. A lot of designers lose the rights to their name because, let's say they start this big label and then they have the full board of directors and the board bumps them out. Well, now they can't go start a new business with their name.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to be careful when you decide to actually brand with your name. It's like, okay, well, you have to keep in mind, one day I could lose the rights to my name and I can't do business as this name. And that doesn't even, at the end of the day, it honestly doesn't even matter if you have it protected with a trademark or not. You could still lose the rights to your name for business purposes. But if you do protect it, you have more protection.
So people can't, if you do trademark it, there's a lot less that people can do with that name.
Correct.
Your name. Okay. That's my dog. My husband will cut this out, but the post.
No, it's cool.
Yeah. You'll have to cut this piece out. We're still recording. Yeah. Okay. Come on. Get out, Ozzy. Okay. There he goes.
Oh.
Sorry. That's okay. So having your business as your name, trademark it. And I think trademarking, like I looked into, because I use Dream Hustle as my program names, and I haven't trademarked it yet. I would like to. I tried to. My first business was called Girlfriend's Guide to Network Marketing, and I couldn't trademark that. I went down the process to do that because someone already owned Girlfriend's Guide. And I didn't want to create a whole brand around something that someone could come to me and say, sorry, but you can't use that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's important to do that. And so what does trademarking look like price wise? Like, I mean, obviously in general, you don't have to give specifics, but is it like $1,000 to trademark, $10,000 to trademark? Like what would someone be looking at to trademark their name?
Yeah. So trademarking will vary. Like I like to think we're pretty mid-priced We're definitely not the cheapest, definitely not the most expensive, but you're getting a quality product with us. So we charge $550 for the search and then $1,300 for the application, which includes the filing fee. And we require the search because it's obviously it's a time investment, it's a money investment. And the thing with trademarks is it's not just infringement when it's the same exact name. It's infringement when there's anything similar enough that it's likely to cause confusion with consumers.
Yes.
So that's what we're looking for in the search, is making sure there's nothing too similar that could still be infringement.
And actually that pricing, because I paid $1,000 just for the search.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, when I did my initial search. So that pricing is actually really good. So you're looking at, a couple $1,000s to trademark your name and know that you're like pretty much protected going forward, that people can't stop you from using it.
Yeah. And honestly, the power of a federal trademark is incredible. The power of a federal trademark these days is incredible for small business owners because you don't have to, and this is because everybody's online. You don't have to sue somebody to shut them down online. Once you have that federal registration, if somebody has your Instagram handle or something similar and it's causing confusion, once you have that registration, you can petition Instagram and they'll remove that account. I've done it for myself. So when I got Legalpreneur finally registered, the Legalpreneur was taken and the Legalpreneur was taken. Got the registration, and within 3 days they had removed the account and gave one of them to me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, they removed both accounts and gave one of them to me.
So those accounts just had to change their name to something else because you own the rights to that Legalpreneur.
Exactly.
Very cool. That's good to know, because
and you can do that with any online platform, because if they don't abide by your request, you can sue them for trademark infringement. So all these online platforms cooperate with you as long as you show ownership. As long as you're showing ownership, they will work with you because they don't want to be sued in all these situations.
Yeah, right. So they're protecting themselves. So if you're listening to this, and obviously you need to do this in your respective country, correct? Like it's.
Yes, I tell clients to definitely start wherever you're making most of your money. So I have a client who's in the UK. She makes most of her money in the US. We file here in the US.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you can file for it in multiple countries then, because I'm about 50-50. Half my clients are in the US, half of them are in Canada. So I would.
Yeah, so you may want both. Yeah.
Both, to trademark it in both countries. So far, I'm very fortunate that there are not very many Shana records in the world that are doing business. So, and I always recommend to my clients too, when you're purchasing your URL, purchase the .ca, the .com, all the different ones, so that, because if you're .com and someone purchases the .ca, now you're like, you could have people going to somebody else's website by accident, and you want to own them all so that nobody else can take it. Or at least the main ones, like not all of the weird ones. There's a lot of different out there, but awesome. Okay, well, this has been so great. This has been so valuable. Thank you so much for all of this great information. So just recap again the contract vault, where they can find it. I'm going to put links to everything in the show notes, you guys, so you can absolutely go and just check the show notes, or reach out to myself or Andrea. We can definitely get you hooked up. But where let's just chat about that one last time.
Yeah, so definitely link the contract vault in the show notes. And so you get 80 plus contracts. You get the Facebook group with the live calls every single month. You can come loaded with your questions. And if you pay yearly, you get the contract request. And I forgot to mention, if you pay yearly, you also get a 20-minute call directly with me, one-on-one with me. So we really deep dive into your business, and I let you know where else you need to make sure you're protected with your business. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's either $119 a month or $999 for the year. And you're protected. And and you won't see any price increases. You'll get all updated contracts, all additions to the contract vault as long as you're a member. And we're adding more tech to the back end. So right now you get the document and you can edit that. We're creating the back end to have it to where you can customize it there on the website, and it'll spit out the final draft. And I'm hoping we can also create it to where it'll be like a DocuSign or a Hello sign. You can just send it out and people will sign it from there. Yeah.
That's amazing. You guys, that pricing, honestly, like I said, I spent $2,000 to have, a few contracts looked over where I could have been a part of this if I had known about it back then. And for $1,000, gotten all the contracts I needed, plus be able to ask questions, plus have the call, plus, all of the things. Like the value of what you're putting out there, Andrea, is incredible, which is why I wanted to have you, as part of this podcast, and those who are part of the Dream Hustle Academy, they get this information as well. And it's so in line with what we're creating on our end that it's such an amazing thing, which is why I wanted to partner with you and be able to share this information. So
Thank you.
I love it. And so you guys, the link is in the show notes, and just for, purposes of what our conversation, because I'm an affiliate with you, Andrea, do I have to, as an affiliate, like, do you have to mention that when you're affiliates with people? Like, what's the proper legal way to say, like, hey, when you sign up for this, because Andrea and I are in a partnership, I do benefit from that. So can you talk about that? Because I think that's, as our last thing, because I know
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, honestly, you just want your audience to know that you may benefit somehow if they purchase.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. You just have to let them know, hey, I'm an affiliate, and if you purchase, I may get a benefit from it.
Yeah. And I think and I'm all about being transparent anyways. Like that's my deal, is like, I'll tell you anything if you really want to know. And so I think that it's important to know that, because I think as these, especially on Instagram and, as these people grow accounts and they get more and more followers, they're getting approached frequently about, hey, if you post a picture with my product, we'll give you a discount, or we'll give you a commission or whatever. So being upfront about that stuff. And I think Instagram's even making that more of a thing where you can actually say that I'm in
the branded content.
Yeah. Just to be upfront about that, and actually put some parameters around making sure that you're being open about that kind of stuff too. So very cool. Thank you. This has been so great.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can't wait to have, people be protected with your stuff, and you guys make sure you check her out. So Andrea, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to digging in and getting all my contracts updated and on point. So thank you again so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.